last week, according to a couple people, so I forgot to mark it, we left off on the poor man. We didn't do that. That's where we pick up this week, as I understand it. And I hope you will take part. So, according to 14:31, says, he that oppresses the poor reproaches his maker, but he that honoreth him hath mercy on him, on the poor. So, what was the thought here? The poor man in the passage, and I think there's another verse, chapter 19, verse 17. And it's not so much aimed at the poor man as it is the poor. And people say, well, they should get a job. Okay, I agree with you. Paul would agree with that. But nonetheless, we're supposed to have pity on the poor. Brother Steve, I'm sorry. There's the ones for the next. They don't need them this week, but you can give them out. Put one on Mrs. Heaton's place if you would. Anyways, so I was saying, we're supposed to have pity on the poor. And if you've never been poor, and in America it's hard to define a poor person. If you go to most countries, it's not hard to find a poor person because they're all poor. And we've seen a couple presentations by Brother Klein. The houses are bombed out, and they're living in one room and the house has been bombed out. We have no idea what that's like. And we would consider, most of us would consider ourselves poor, so to speak, but we're well, if you've got a dollar bill on your billfold, you're richer than a good percentage of the world. So, thoughts? Don't everybody speak at once.
David in the Psalms, he said, this poor man cried, and the Lord heard him.
Okay. All right. So the poor man there would be poor in what? What do you think? Interesting. Would you think about it a minute? That's the king saying this poor man cried. Maybe it's poor has to do with spirituality, or maybe he feels like he doesn't deserve the goodness of God, so he's a poor man or something. Hard to say. And we're looking here in Proverbs. We're looking at what Solomon's writing to his son. And like I said, his whole theory is that we need to have pity on the poor and the poor man.
Yet Proverbs 19:4 says, wealth maketh many friends, but the poor is separated from his neighbor.
Yep. Why? Because most people don't want to have anything to do with poor people. Being poor, by the way, according to your Bible, really isn't a curse. As much as a condition of your life. There may be a time in your life, there's been, maybe twice in our life, that we would consider ourselves poor, in that we lived every week by the paycheck, and the time we paid the bills, there wasn't much left over for. So we,
In our country, we consider that poor, because we got a paycheck and paid the bills and there was no left. But in other countries, they don't even get a paycheck. They're living for the day.
One person said it, and I noticed it when I was in Romania. Some of the happiest people in the world aren't in America. You And the reason why is because we're never, I told my wife, I said, I really get a little sick and tired of, I was drowning in debt, and I called National Relief and come and save me. And
In America,
this one,
it's hard to find a poor person.
it is,
Genuine poor person.
yeah.
Yep.
This one guy with a beard about 85 feet long said if he'd have paid the minimum payment, it'd take him 59 years. I thought, well, that shows character. At least you try. He didn't.
Yeah.
So they ran a one yesterday with him on it, and he said, I'm out of debt, and I finally get to ride my motorcycle and stuff. I'm going, why didn't you sell your motorcycle? It would have probably paid your debt. But that's America, see? You can own a motorcycle, a car, a truck, a boat, plane, but you're in debt. And National Relief talked to your creditors and got you out.
They show poor people in other countries like on YouTube, but they all got cell phones.
Yeah. Well, let's don't pick on the poor people. There are some genuine poor people in this world. Didn't Jesus say you should always have the poor with you? All right, somebody else with a thought there. If not, we'll move on to the prudent man.
Proverbs 22:2 says that the rich and the poor meet together.
Rich and the poor meet together.
The Lord is the maker of them both.
Now there's thought.
Amen.
Rich and poor meet together, and the Lord is the maker of them both. So he makes the poor and he makes the...
22:16 says, he that oppresseth the poor to increase his riches, he that giveth to the rich shall surely come to want.
I forget how many millionaires they say are in America right now. It's an unbelievable figure.
Are they technically millionaires though, or is that just on paper?
Well,
You know, you could be worth a lot on paper.
in about 3 years, we'll find out if they're a millionaire.
This is true.
They'll be dead, in debt. Because Americans never learn how to use their money right.
Just heard a quote this week said that riches is not being able to buy anything. It's being able to, true riches is being able to buy what you want.
Yeah.
And he says, I have everything I want already. I don't need anything else. I'm a rich man.
Mm-hmm.
That's the truth. When somebody comes to my house, they've done it before, and wants to borrow $20 till payday, you know somebody's hurting. Say, did you loan it to him? Yep. He left me a buck knife, which was worth a whole lot more than the $20. He said, I'll be back Friday, or you can have the knife. I thought, don't come back. Or I was going to put a sign on the door, Dan, that said, well, I moved. I got your knife. You should see the collection of knives I've got. I've had to move a lot, but boy, I got a collection of knives. Anybody else with a thought there? Really, the thought, and I think it's been done this morning 2 or 3 times, it isn't directed to the poor man so much as it is the poor. And I don't know, to be honest with you, I don't know if I've ever really known a poor man. I've known some people who made themselves poor. You said it. You don't have to have money, but you have to have a card. And when you see these boats, I saw a boat the other day, look like a ship to me. I thought, good night, that's got to be like 130,000 or something. And pull with a brand new truck on a boat trailer. And you know he's not living in his boat, so he's got a nice house somewhere. Americans can have what they want because the credit companies will let them get it, and then they don't care if you ever get done paying. The interest alone will. Well, that's not the subject here. Okay, so what about the prudent man? Do we understand what prudent means? And I don't mean to be looking down upon you or assuming something, but do we understand prudent? Somebody tell me what it means.
Someone who's tight with their wallet.
Tight with what? Approved.
It says acting with or showing care and thought for the future, wise, cautious.
Okay. So a prudent man looks and says, do I really need to do this? I don't know how rich men do it, but they've got a way to use their money the right way. The rich men never spend the money. They live on the interest. Because if you start spending your money, you won't have any way to build an interest. And I don't know, I am not a person who knows how to do that kind of stuff. My wife's wiser at it than I am. But if you put your money to use somewhere, for instance, when the bank loans you money, they're using your money to make themselves money. So if you're wise, you'll learn how to make the money off of your money. That's hard to do because most of us are not in a position to do that. All right? Somebody get a verse or something you want to share here with us.
Prudent man foreseeth the evil and hideth himself, or is that the righteous? I don't remember which one that was.
I don't know, the verse is 12:23 and I don't have it.
A prudent man concealeth knowledge, but the heart of fools proclaiming foolishness is 12:23.
So what do you think that means? A prudent man concealeth knowledge.
Doesn't tell all he knows.
That's the way I would look at it. He doesn't tell all he knows. Why? That's what a fool does. A fool tells you, huh?
Proverbs 12:16 says, a fool's wrath is presently known, but a prudent man covereth shame. So, probably knows when to tell something and when not.
Yep, I think so. A talebearer, and that's another subject, but a talebearer is a person who starts trouble. It's like adding wood to the fire. And the prudent man goes, there's no point in telling that. What's gained by knowing what so-and-so did? And you say love covers a multitude of sins. A good friend doesn't tell. A good friend knows the information but says, that's my friend. I've had to tell people a couple times, stop right there, I'm not interested. You'd be better off, was to say, the north wind driveth away. Old Proverbs, what a book. Anybody else on the prudent man?
Acts 13:7, Sergius Paulus is called prudent man because he called for Barnabas and Saul and desired to hear the word of God.
Oh, there's a good one. You're prudent if you want to hear the word of God. You're a wise person.
Proverbs 15:2, the tongue of the wise useth knowledge aright, but the mouth of the fools poureth out foolishness.
Do it again, Dan.
The tongue of the wise useth knowledge right, but the mouth of the fools poureth out foolishness.
Okay. I'm not, that's a mouthful. I mean, how many times, admit it to yourself, how many times over the years have you heard something and afterwards you wished you hadn't heard it?
Yeah.
True or not true? Somebody say, well, that's true. Doesn't make any difference. Just because something's true doesn't mean you have a right to blab it all over town. Proverbs 14:15 says, the simple believe every word, but the prudent man looketh well to his going. I've always thought that was a unique verse. The simple believeth every word. There are some people that believe everything they're told.
Yes.
Whether it's true, whether it's not. It's like they got to have that information, but for what? They don't know.
Sounds like a Democrat.
Proverbs 22:3 says, a prudent man foreseeth the evil and hideth himself, but the simple pass on and are
Yes, yes. And we usually, when the Lord says something twice, He has a point to make. And notice the comparison between the simple and the prudent. Simple not in stupid, but simple in not being wise. Prudent man's wise, cautious, whatever. A simple person, simple people sometimes they like to hang around and hear whatever they can hear. Do you realize what percentage of the advertisements you hear for this season of, whatever you want to call it, this political season, you realize that these ads are purposely built to make you understand what they want you to understand. And it may be that whatever they're telling you isn't even the truth.
It's biased in their favor.
Yeah. But the simple believe every word. Well, you know what I heard about? Yeah. Does that mean it's true because you heard it? Well, no. I don't think they'd put it on TV if it wasn't true. Oh. I figure about 95% of what's on TV is not the truth. So the prudent man. Anybody else got a thought on the prudent man? Maybe we should do this. I'd like to be a prudent person. When you look at that word, you think that's almost a bad word, but it's not. I think Brother Klein said something to start out with on prude. And there's probably a connection between the words somewhere if you chase it down. I like to sometimes, when I'm writing, and I come across the word, I like to look it up in the dictionary and follow the different languages and learn. You can learn something by where the word came from, when it was first used, why was it used that way. I've heard people say something about the elections being so bad. I thought, you need to read back in the history of our country. Do you know in the history of our country, Kennedy wasn't the first Catholic to run for office? And boy, that guy that ran for office, they gave him up and down because he was Catholic. So don't believe everything you hear. Matter of fact, push the mute button. Especially when a certain person's speaking. There's probably some preachers and quote, quote, Bible teachers that need to be muted. All right, anybody else got a thought there before we move on? Okay, rich man. Now our verse for this was chapter 10, verse 15. That says, the rich man's wealth is his strong city. The destruction of the poor is their poverty. It's just the truth put in a few words there in a verse. Well, so the rich man's wealth is his strong city. It's what he leans upon. Now I know all this political stuff, they take up money so they can get elected. But one particular person doesn't even need to take any money up. He takes money up so he doesn't have to spend his own. An organization that can own a jet, fly wherever it wants to do, doesn't need your money. Huh? People say, well, why would you discuss that stuff in church? Because it's right here in the book. Some people think that Jesus only talked about spiritual things. I don't know. I heard him talk about a penny one time. I heard him talk about a fish. Oh, yeah, but he didn't mean, oh, he didn't? Oh, okay. Is that a mechanical fish that he flew up there? Sometimes I may overspeak myself, but I just believe the book's right no matter what it says. So I'd rather go to heaven, Lord goes, you really believe that? All right, rich man. Somebody get anything on the rich man? Well, a rich man's not always wise, is he?
28:11 Proverbs says, "The rich man is wise in his own conceit, but the poor that hath understanding searcheth him out."
So let's read that again. Give us the chapter.
Proverbs 28:11,
28:11.
"The rich man is wise in his own conceit, but the poor that hath understanding searcheth him out."
There's a message, Brother Klein.
Wrath, understanding, searcheth him out.
What's that? Proverbs 23, is it?
The one I just said?
Huh?
The one I just said?
No, there's one that talks about the wise man saved the city and nobody. I can't remember.
Ecclesiastes 6.
Was that Ecclesiastes maybe? Okay. Yeah, I think you're right. I hate to admit it, but you're right. Well, I can't locate it right now, but I think you know what I'm talking about.
Uh, 9:15, now there was found in there a poor wise man.
Yeah,
By his wisdom delivered the city.
yeah, that's the one. 9 what? 15?
9:15, Ecclesiastes.
Okay. Somebody else have? You have to talk louder, Ruth. She doesn't hear.
I said, yet nobody remembered him.
Right, right.
I get in trouble because she can't hear.
Well, I can understand that. Joseph was a rich man, and he went and begged for the body of Jesus.
Actually, there's quite a study on the rich man. One of them is called A Rich Fool. In his case, it was that he trusted everything he owned, and he was going to rebuild it, make it better than it was. The Lord said, "You're a fool." That doesn't mean that you can't build a new garage or buy enough toys. You got to have a new garage. Simply says you can't trust this life. You don't know when it's going to end. I've heard over the years of men who went to a doctor, got a bill of health, A-OK. Next day, dropped dead of a heart attack. You just never know when the Lord's going to say, "Oh, your number's next."
So many verses.
How's that?
So there's so many verses.
Yeah, I know it. That's why I left it blank. Well, I should have made it further. I say blank on my piece of paper. I have verses written in, but not there because there's so many.
Laodicea church was told not to. No, she said, "I am rich." She
Yeah.
make you poor, miserable, and blind.
She saw herself, which she wasn't. She said she was rich, and the reason why she says she's rich is because they have stained glass windows and, you know, everything's plush. I mean, they would think that a stadium in Dallas. One lady told me, she says, "I love such and such a place." And I went, "Why?" "Oh, they have such pretty windows." I said, "Ma'am, you're basing your religion upon the windows?" "Well, yes, they're beautiful." You try to get past that, you'll have a hard day to go work. And somebody's in love with their building. Well, Mazzaferis went to Italy. I mean, you think there's any Catholics there? And they had a hard time getting people to come because they were in a storefront.
Yeah.
Wasn't a pretty picture window and stained glass. Because they associate stained glass and velvet and curtains and juice and all that as part of salvation. It's not even near it. But you can't get them to see that. You have to live. They've lived over there. I don't know how many years they've been over there. And long time.
Yeah.
And I think they just now getting around to getting a congregation built of some sort. But so there's a lot there.
Jeremiah 9:23. The Lord said, "Let not the wise man glory in his wisdom, neither let the mighty man glory in his might. Let not the rich man glory in his riches."
There's a good one, Jeremiah what?
9:23.
9:23. Jeremiah 9:23.
Riches increase, said nothing hard upon them.
I'll probably ask you what that verse was again, dear, because I just wrote it down here, but I can't read what I just wrote. What it looks like is, you're real close. Yeah. I'll tell you, I had fairly good handwriting years ago, but somehow it's gone into slop. So whenever I send a note or something to somebody, I said, here's what I want, now you write it. Because if I write it to somebody, they're going to say, what's he trying to do, start a war? Plus the fact is I often forget a word or an ending. I'm terrible about ing and ed.
First Timothy 6:17.
Oh yeah.
Them that are rich in this world, that they be not high-minded, nor trust in uncertain riches, but in the living God who giveth us richly all things to enjoy.
And if you tie that all together and take it to Revelation 17 and 18, while the men of the world stand and watch Babylon burn, there goes their riches and there goes their money, there goes everything.
The next verse in Jeremiah 9, after let not the rich man glory in his riches, verse 24, but let him that glorieth glory in this, that he understandeth and knoweth me, that I am the Lord which exerciseth loving kindness, judgment, and righteousness in the earth. For in these things I delight.
That's a good lesson. Jeremiah 9:23 and 24.
Matthew 19:24.
Yes, sir.
It's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than a rich man.
Well, Dan, that wasn't a real needle, no.
No, it's a place out there.
Yeah, it's just a place out there, yeah.
Yeah. You ever been there?
I look at it this way.
But when you think about it, it's gonna be tough for rich people.
Oh, yeah.
To find God, and, it's hard for them.
Yeah. I know maybe one or two rich people who actually do something with their money right.
Yeah.
Well, some of them. Anybody else? I don't know, maybe you don't get much out of it, but as a teacher, I get something out of it with your input because a lot of times I go, I didn't see that. My wife said to me this morning, she says, I saw something I hadn't seen before, reading my Bible the other day, and I thought to her, well, not me. About this time, the Lord's going to strike me with lightning, and I'll just... And I don't know, the passage is in Mark, I think. She said that after Jesus did something, the Pharisees...
Well, the Pharisees were following him in the crowds. But what stood out to me was the fact that after the feeding of the 5,000, after the calming of the storm, the verse said that the disciples
Yeah,
had a hardened heart.
it's easy to get that. So when you see something, when you read something, don't assume that everybody else gets it. I know Brother Dan's been around here for, I think, right after I got off the boat with Noah. You and Marge were waiting at the parking lot.
Yeah, we're just a little behind.
Just a little minor. But he's been around long enough to know that he's heard things that he didn't.
When I first came here and listened to you preach, you thought in the beginning you really didn't know a whole lot after coming out of school, but my mouth was like yours was in school. I never heard that stuff.
Yeah, the first 5 years we didn't have trouble with flies until after Dan got used to my preaching.
It was amazing.
And you know, and this is kind of off the subject, but now that we brought it up, isn't it interesting when you find a real Bible believer, what you hear and what you don't hear? And people would say, well, any church is good. Well, I'm not saying that we're the only one. I'm not saying, I mean, I know some churches not too far from here. Got Bible believing preachers in them. That, to me, that's what the fun is. The fun is, if you want to call it that, is finding something in the scripture that you didn't see the last time you read it, and you go, wow, that's interesting. All right, anybody else? Brother Rush, you don't have anything on me?
You guys got it.
Oh, okay.
The rich man and Lazarus goes along with that other verse too.
Yep.
He had it all.
He had it all, and he lost it all, and now,
Because he wouldn't regard the poor.
yeah. Now Lazarus had it all. You realize when you leave this earth, whatever you own or possess will be nothing compared to what you're gonna. Even if, as people said, all I care about is just get to heaven. Okay, even if all you care about is just to get to heaven, it's still gonna be greater than living in Lupton or Rose City. Probably have your own junkyard in heaven, brother.
They won't rust.
Yeah, yeah. There you
He's
go.
gonna be in charge of all those satellites up there, they don't know what to do with them.
I think it's going to be interesting when the Lord finally burns up the universe. Men think they're so smart. They're so quiet. And according to Genesis 11, the Lord knew that. They do whatever their heart desires. That's why we have transit. I remember the first transistor radios, Brother Dan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little box about that big, and you could hardly get a channel in Lupton.
Yeah. Mostly stick.
And they were only AM too.
Yep.
What Brother Nan and I discovered some years back, if we would have went for FM radio when they first were putting it out, they would give you the frequency and give you 50,000 watts. We just got in on it late. That's all right. We got people listening all over the place. In fact, Brother Jones says, give me the, what do they call it? What do you call it when you, huh?
The link?
No. Oh, skip my brain working.
The website, you mean?
Yeah,
The URL?
he wants to get our radio station. We showed him how to do it on his
Cell phone.
cell phone.
Right.
I think that's amazing. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, because we're streaming it.
That's what I wanted, the word streaming. Yeah. A lot of people are listening and are streaming it. Every once in a while, not a lot, but every once in a while I'll get a phone call from somebody say, "You tell them, preacher." I said, "I've been trying to, don't work."
I like what you said this morning on the radio.
Oh no, what did I say?
It was about
Having faith in God,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
that He'll carry us through, even though we don't understand why we're going through certain things.
Yep,
yeah.
yep.
Yes, sir, brother. And you're not the only one in that position. Got a whole room full.
Yep.
Okay, somebody else here. On the rich man. How about the slothful man?
Slothful and sluggard mixed up.
I'm sorry, but
I always get sloths and slugs mixed up.
Pretty close.
I was thinking of a couple verses, but they were sluggards, not slothful.
well, there is a kinship, I think, there.
Sloths and slugs?
Well, see, here's the problem. You laugh at that, but as a boy in North Carolina, when we got out of church and it was warm and hot, those slugs would crawl across the cement barrier and we would kill them. We never got caught.
Is that bad? Is that bad?
I don't know. When they leave a trail of salt or something.
You don't like salt.
I think that's slime.
Lime? It could be, Brother Dan. I just remember doing it as a kid.
Well, oh, go ahead.
Two verses are both the same. Proverbs 19:24 and 22:13. The slothful man hideth his hand in his bosom and will not so much as bring it to his mouth again. Oh, no, I'm sorry, 22:13 and 26:13. The slothful man saith, there's a lion without, they shall be slain in the streets. Slothful man saith, there's a lion in the way, the lion is in the streets. He's
What
not
verse
gonna
is
do
that?
anything about danger, apparently.
What verse is that?
22:13 and 26:13.
A slothful man is an inactive, lazy man. And you said you had a hard time between the slothful and the...
I actually wrote those two verses down, but I thought the sluggard, I guess I was right, I guess I was wrong that I was right.
You're wrong, but you're right.
Yeah. Went by the field of the slothful, I remember that one.
Of the slothful man hiding his hand, that's also in 1924.
So did anybody look up the words, just since he mentioned it, sluggard, so we can get that, besides being a Baptist? I didn't look it up.
The door turneth upon his hinges, so that's the
Sluggard in his bed.
sluggard in his bed.
Somebody said,
Slothful too, but I think sluggard.
I think there's a kinship between the two words, but I can't give you the definition at the moment. And we don't have any dictionaries. People,
You have a little sleep, a little slumber, a little cold in thy hands.
Proverbs 15:19 says, "The way of the slothful man is as a hedge of thorns, but the way of the righteous is made plain."
you know, the first time I read that, Dan, it took me a while to put it together. If you're in a hedge of thorns, you know what you're doing? Ooh, you're struggling to get there. Yeah. That's the slothful man.
Matthew 25:26 says, to the servant that wasteth his talent, the Lord called him wicked and slothful.
Slothful.
In Proverbs 18:9 he says, "He also that is slothful in his work is brother to him that is a great waster."
So there's a kinship between a waster and a slothful man. You know, my father-in-law, God bless him, he was a dear man, but he was raised in the Depression, and you threw nothing away. As a matter of fact, some of you may be not aware, but during World War II, we gave them fat and all kinds of stuff because they can make dynamite and all kinds of stuff. You could only buy 3 tires for a car. You couldn't buy 4. And you couldn't hoard. If somebody found out you were hoarding food, they would come and take some of it. And I don't think people don't realize he would saved everything. Bent nails. He would go around and pick up bent nails. See what he did with them, straighten them out. And he never fixed a rotten board. He just put a piece of aluminum over it. And I'd say to him, Dad, what are you doing? Fixing it. I said, no, Dad, you're covered. But he didn't waste time. When he got up in the morning, he had a day planned. And he would work his day. You know, most of us don't, but he did. And sometimes we didn't get along together, him and I didn't, but I loved him, and the Lord is a good man. He let me marry his daughter, and that made him even better. Even though I think it was against his will at first. All right, anybody got any more anyway, got something to say? So a Christian can be slothful. A Christian can be slothful then. All right. Take a break. Get some coffee, donuts, peanut butter.